My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 58 years old, a retired pediatric nurse with 32 years of steady hands and quiet patience. And I live alone in a modest 3-bedroom ranch house on a quiet cul-de-sac in the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. At least, that is what I tell people. The truth is more complicated. I live with the memory of Robert. Robert planted the maple tree in the front yard the spring after we moved in. He painted the front door a deep forest green because he said it looked honest. He built the wooden swing on the back porch with his own hands, measuring twice and cutting once, the way he did everything. When the cancer took him 3 years ago, I kept every single thing exactly as he left it. The green door, the swing, the maple tree that now drops leaves in neat copper circles every October. I could not bring myself to change a single detail, because changing anything felt like erasing him twice. Then, 14 months ago, my daughter Chloe and her husband Tyler moved in. It started with a phone call on a rainy Tuesday evening in June. Chloe's voice was tight, the way it used to get when she was little and had broken something she could not fix. Mom, we lost the lease. The business, it's not recovering the way we hoped. We just need 6 months, maybe 8, just until we get back on our feet. I should have said no. Every instinct built over 3 decades of reading frightened parents and sick children told me the request was already larger than the words being used. But she was my only child. She had Robert's eyes. And in that moment, grief still sat heavy enough in my chest that I could not bear the thought of her sleeping in a car or a cheap motel. 6 months, I said. That's what you're asking. 6 months, she repeated. I promise. Tyler's voice came through the speaker, smooth and practiced. We'll be so respectful of your space, Eleanor. You won't even know we're here. That sentence should have been the warning. The first 2 months were manageable. Chloe helped with laundry without being asked. Tyler mowed the lawn on weekends. They were loud in the evenings, at shows I did not watch. But I told myself young people were supposed to be loud. Robert and I had been loud once too. By month 4, the tone had shifted. Chloe began sleeping until nearly noon. She would drift into the kitchen while I was finishing my coffee, pour herself a cup from the pot I had already made, and scroll through her phone without acknowledging me. Tyler started referring to the guest room as our suite. They used my grocery money, my internet, my electricity, and my silence, and never once offered to contribute beyond the occasional half-hearted, "We'll pay you back when things turn around." My neighbor, an older man named Frank who lived 2 doors down, started appearing at the fence on Sunday mornings. He would hand me a paper cup of diner coffee and study the house with quiet eyes. "How long they planning on staying?" he asked one morning while I deadheaded the roses Robert had planted. 6 months, I said. Frank nodded slowly. Uh-huh. He did not believe it. Neither did I anymore. 6 months became 9. 9 became 12. And on a cold morning in early October, Chloe sat across from me at the kitchen table with a folder of papers and a bright, practiced smile. "Mom, we've been thinking," she began, "for security, for everyone's peace of mind. It would make sense if you transferred the house into our names. Just on paper, you're getting older. What if something happens? This way, everything stays in the family." I stared at her. The maple leaves outside the window were turning the exact shade of copper Robert used to love. My hands went very still around my coffee. "You're asking me to sign my home over to you?" I said. "Not asking," Tyler said, where he had been listening. "Suggesting. It's the responsible thing. We've been living here over a year. We've invested time, energy. It's only fair." Fair. I looked at my daughter. She held my gaze for almost 4 full seconds before her eyes slid sideways toward the folder. That was enough. "I'll think about it," I said. I did not think about it the way they expected. That afternoon, I called my attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Lang, who had handled Robert's estate and had no patience for sentimentality. I explained the situation in the flat, factual tone I used to use when delivering difficult news to parents in the hospital. Patricia was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Eleanor, under Ohio law, as long as the house is solely in your name and there is no existing deed transfer, you can change your will at any time. You can also serve a formal notice to vacate. 30 days is standard for month-to-month occupants with no lease. Do you want me to draft both?" "Yes," I said, "but not yet. Christmas is 10 weeks away. I want the timing to be deliberate." "Understood. When you're ready, call me. The documents will be airtight." I hung up and sat in the quiet kitchen. Outside, the maple tree dropped another leaf. Inside, something cooler and more deliberate began to form beneath the ache in my chest. Chloe and Tyler never asked again about the house papers that week. They simply assumed the answer would eventually be yes, the way people who have never been told no often assume the world will rearrange itself around their convenience. Chloe threw herself into planning Christmas with the intensity of someone staging a performance. She posted teaser photos on her social media accounts. "Biggest family gathering yet. You won't believe believe this spread. She ordered matching linen napkins. She bookmarked floral arrangements that cost more than my monthly utility bills. She never once asked me what I wanted. The list arrived on a Monday evening, 4 days before Christmas. Chloe walked into the kitchen wearing a silk robe, phone in one hand, 2 sheets of heavy cardstock in the other. She did not say good evening. She dropped the papers in front of me. "I need all of this done by tomorrow afternoon," she said, eyes already back on her screen. "Hair appointment at 10, nails after that, content to shoot before dinner. You know how these things are." I picked up the list. 2 large hams from a specific butcher, imported cheeses, charcuterie boards with ingredients listed by brand name, 4 cases of sparkling water, specific wines, specialty bread that required advance orders, preferred ribbon color for the napkin rings. I set the papers down carefully. "You invited them," I said. "You chose the menu. You do the shopping." Chloe's thumb stopped moving. Genuine shock crossed her face, unguarded for once. "Excuse me? The groceries on that list are for guests you invited to a party you planned in a house you do not pay for. You can handle the shopping." Her face cycled through shock, outrage, and then the cold calculation of a woman reaching for a tool that had always worked before. "Tyler," she called. "Tyler, come in here right now." Tyler appeared in the doorway with the hollow-eyed look of a man who had been pulled into one too many of these moments. His shoulders were already hunched. Chloe jabbed a finger at the table. "Your mother-in-law is refusing to help with Christmas. Tell her." Tyler looked at me. Then he looked at the floor. His jaw worked like he was searching for words that could satisfy both of us at once. "Come on, Eleanor," he said finally. "It's Christmas. We're all supposed to pitch in. It's just groceries." That phrase, "it's just groceries," as if the issue had ever been about groceries. I pushed back my chair, picked up my coffee mug, and looked at my daughter for a long moment, at the set of her jaw, at the way she could not quite hold my gaze, at the version of herself she had become. Then I walked out of the kitchen without another word. Behind me, I heard Chloe say to Tyler, her voice already recovering its confidence, "She'll cave. She always does. She'll be at that store by tomorrow morning. You watch." I went to my desk, picked up the phone, and called the bank. The supplementary card I had given Chloe 18 months earlier for household expenses, the one she had been using for nail salons, boutique clothing, and spa days, was deactivated before I set the phone down. The list stayed on the kitchen table all night. Nobody touched it. By the Tuesday before Christmas, every grocery store in Columbus had been picked over by families who had planned weeks ahead. Later that night, after the house had gone quiet, Chloe knocked on my bedroom door. She stood in the hallway with her arms crossed, not quite able to meet my eyes. "Mom, I know this is a lot to ask," she said, voice low and careful, "but would you mind taking the smaller bedroom while everyone's here? Dad's side of the family is getting older. The master suite would really be better for them." I looked at my daughter for a long moment. She stared at the baseboard the entire time. I said nothing. The next morning, I called Patricia. "Do it," I said. "The will and the notice. Certified mail. Signature confirmation." Patricia drafted a new will that left the house, the savings, and every asset to a combination of the Children's Hospital, where I had spent my career, and 2 of Robert's nieces who had stayed in quiet, consistent contact over the years. Chloe and Tyler received nothing. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. Patricia also prepared a formal 30-day notice to vacate under Ohio law. No lease existed. No rent had ever been paid. The house was mine alone. The documents were served on December 20th. Chloe signed for the certified envelope herself without reading it carefully. She assumed it was Christmas cards or insurance paperwork. She tossed it on the entry table and went back to arranging pine cones on the mantle for her content photos. Christmas Eve arrived with the kind of brittle cold that makes the air feel thin. Chloe's relatives began pulling into the driveway in a procession of expensive cars. 28 people in total. They filled the living room with loud voices and the smell of perfume. Chloe moved among them like a hostess in a magazine spread, phone never far from her hand. I stayed in the kitchen, drinking coffee, watching. At 4 p.m., when the last guest had arrived and the noise had reached its peak, I walked into the living room carrying a single manila folder. The room gradually quieted as people noticed me standing there. Chloe turned, smiling the bright public smile she used for strangers. "Mom, you didn't have to dress up," she said lightly. "We're keeping things casual." I did not smile back. "I have something to say," I said. My voice was steady. 32 years of delivering hard truths in hospital rooms had taught me how to keep it that way. "It will only take a minute." Chloe's smile flickered. Tyler straightened from where he had been leaning against the wall. I opened the folder. "As of this morning, the house is under a formal 30-day notice to vacate. You and Tyler will need to be out by January 19th. There is no lease. There has never been rent. The law is clear." A low murmur moved through the room. Chloe's face drained of color. "And second," I continued, "I have updated created my will. The house, the savings, and everything else will go to the children's hospital and to Robert's nieces. You will not inherit this home. You will not inherit anything from me." Silence fell so completely that I could hear the furnace kick on in the basement. Chloe's voice came out high and thin. "You can't do that. We're family. We've been living here. We've taken care of—" "You have lived here," I said. "You have used my home, my money, and my patience. You have not taken care of anything except your own image." Tyler stepped forward, face darkening. "This is insane. You can't just—" "I can," I said, "and I have. The documents are already filed. My attorney has copies. If you would like to contest it, you are welcome to try. It will cost you money you do not have." Chloe's mother-in-law, a woman with perfect hair and cold eyes, stood up. "This is highly inappropriate. It's Christmas." "It is," I agreed, "which is why I waited until everyone was here, so there would be no confusion later about what was said and what was decided." I set the folder on the coffee table. Inside were copies of the notice and the relevant pages of the new will. "You are welcome to finish your gathering," I said. "The food you managed to buy is in the kitchen. After today, I will be staying with a friend until the 30 days are up. The locks will be changed on January 19th. Anything left behind will be considered abandoned." I walked to the front door, took my coat from the hook, and stepped outside into the cold. Behind me, I heard Chloe's voice rise, sharp and disbelieving, followed by the overlapping sound of relatives demanding explanations. Frank was standing at the fence, as if he had known. He handed me a fresh cup of coffee through the slats without a word. "You look lighter," he said after a moment. "I am," I answered. I did not look back at the house. The maple tree stood quiet under the gray sky, its branches bare now, waiting for spring. Robert would have understood. He had always believed that some doors, once closed, should stay that way. The 30 days passed. On January 19th, the locks were changed. Chloe and Tyler left with 2 suitcases and a moving truck they had to rent. Themselves. They did not say goodbye. I did not expect them to. In the spring, I planted new roses along the fence line. Not the same varieties Robert had chosen. New ones. Brighter. Stronger. The kind that could survive without constant protection. The house felt like mine again. Not a museum of grief. Not a temporary shelter for people who had forgotten how to be grateful. Just a home. Quiet. Steady. Enough. And for the first time in a long while, that was all I needed it to be.